Hey retro TV fans, Bored now, back with you. On this video I'm going to be talking about Gilmore Girls Season 2 Episode 12. It is called Richard in Stars Hollow, full spoilers. And this episode originally aired on the 29th of January 2002 and it got about 5.83 in the good old-fashioned Nelson rating. Richard is driving Emily bonkers in his retirement now, so she sneakily fobs him off on Lorelai, gets to spend a day in Stars Hollow. Lorelai is fearing he drives her crazy because they're just not used to spending time together. He tags along with her to work in the diner, and throughout the day is consistently criticising every little aspect of her daily routine and her life. Rory gets suckered in by Paris, Oppenheimer Award, which is a very prestigious journalistic award for schools and colleges, and Paris is going into panic mode about we must produce a great human interest story to win the Oppenheimer Award. She tags along with Rory in Stars Hollow and is looking to dig up dirt on Stars Hollow. Fun episode. It's another little bit of a filler episode, although there are things in there which probably are ongoing themes in this season and character stuff, but it's more of a filler episode, a bit like last episode was, but I would say overall it's a better episode than this. I think I did enjoy the stuff with Richard and I enjoyed the stuff with Rory and Paris. The episode's written by a male writer and it's also directed by a male, and because of the extra focus on Richard and his retirement and his current state of mind and just some of the drama of that, I wonder if that was intentional, that this male writer wanted to push that angle for the episode, or if it's just a coincidence. A really solid episode, some decent drama, some enjoyable character stuff, some fun banter and antics. Chance for Edward Herman to shine as only he can because he is so good. And what I like about the stuff in Stars Hollow with him and Lorelai throughout the day is how it's a fun little twist on this sort of storyline where in many ways Richard doesn't even realise that he's doing anything wrong. He doesn't realise he's overstepping the mark. He's just doing exactly what he would do. And it's just this idea of this kind of career man who's always been at work and then suddenly doesn't know what to do when he's no longer in business. So he just carries on as he would have done before he retired. And that's one of the key comments at one point from Lorelai, where she makes fun at him for still getting up at 5:30 in the morning. She's like, well, you could go wild for a change and just get up at 5:45. But that's the whole idea, is that he's not acting any differently from when he worked, because he's not used to this, so he doesn't know how to adjust his lifestyle. And that's part of the reason he's gotten on Emily's nerves, because she's used to him at work, and then suddenly with him at home all day, it becomes a bit of a hindrance. It becomes a bit of a burden on Emily. And so this stuff is all very relatable, but they just get the Richard stuff down to a T. And Edward Herman is really good in the episode because he just plays everything just so straight and so natural, and he does some fun bits of acting along the way. And as things get a little bit dramatic in the episode, he does that stuff very well near the end of the episode. Still has the same breakfast. He still has the grapefruit breakfast, and how it becomes a bit of an issue because he's in Luke's, and Luke doesn't do grapefruit. So at one point, because Richard just insists on grapefruit, Lorelai has to get Luke to actually buy a grapefruit so he can do. And it says something for Luke's character than he actually does. He's actually willing to buy grapefruit so that he can do the breakfast that Richard wants. And Richard is also criticising Lorelai for having like her second or third coffee, and it's still early in the morning, and this is where it all starts, where he's like just picking all these little holes along the way. Because at one point when he shows up at the Dragonfly Inn, he's like criticising her business manner on the telephone, and he comes down really hard, and Michelle's having a lot of fun in the background, just sort of smirking away. It's like someone's in trouble. And these things just build and build quite naturally throughout the day. And that's what I like about the episode, is that at first there's nothing that obvious. Like, it's not that Richard is being that over the top or that kind of obnoxious or like aggressive. It's just he's naturally going about his day, and this gets applied now to Stars Hollow, and that's where a lot of the fun in the episode is. By the way, just a little comment about the opening scene at Friday night dinner, where Emily is in, like, you've got the whole thing about her inquiring about which family member's grave should get moved so they can make room for like Lorelai and everyone else, because she's inquiring about Lorelai's love life, and it turns out that's why. And the comment about Luke, like you haven't gotten together with him in the diner, who barely shaves and refuses to shave. And I tell you what, if Emily thinks Luke refuses to shave, she should get a load of me. Rory shows Richard her books and like her room, and you see that she's got like all the photos of Harvard, because that's the college she has her heart set on. And that's when he starts criticising Lorelai. Like in the next scene, he thinks she's trying to enforce that on Rory because that's the college that Lorelai always wanted to go to. Dean comes along, and his dad has like fixed up a car, and it's for Rory, and Richard is just like criticising it left, right and says, you're not taking my granddaughter out with that. It's too dangerous, you're just a kid. Richard insists on going with Dean to have the car checked over, because he's just convinced that something must be wrong with it. And they go off to Gypsy, and that's quite a funny little scene, because Gypsy checks the car so many times, and then eventually she just like rips off the head shields or like the wipers, and it's like, because she just wants to get home, because Richard isn't going to take no for an answer. He isn't going to accept, and there's nothing wrong with the car. So she just rips off like the wipers. Him and Dean have like a proper conversation, and he actually gets to know Dean a little bit, and it's still a little bit hairy, but finally they do have like a man-to-man conversation, and Richard accepts, and okay, maybe there's nothing wrong with him giving Rory the car, and it's sort of on the up and up and things like that. But it's in the back half of the episode where Edward Herrmann does some really great acting, and the fight later on with Lorelai, because Lorelai basically tears him one, which he's definitely got a right to do. Like, it says, okay, you've been overstepping your mark all day. A little bit too far, as Lorelai tends to do. Like the little twist to the scene where Richard's like, well, I hope you never feel obsolete, I think he says. And that's something which a few episodes back, I know when I did one of the reviews with Rachel, like we were talking about that, how Richard is starting to feel, and this is before he had been retired, but he was starting to feel that the company are looking at younger people, and that they're starting to phase maybe the older ways out, and that maybe Richard, if he didn't adapt or couldn't adapt, then he might be left out in the cold. So that was something. That was a nice little callback to that. That shows them this stuff has been like coming, and it does feel like something that's true to life. And that he gives to Lorelai about, I hope you never feel obsolete, because it is a little bit of a shot in the arm, and you can tell she does take it on board. Lorelai a bit of truth back, even though he's taken on board what she said, because he knows that it's Emily who idea for him to spend the day in Stars Hollow. He also makes probably a valid point that he never gets invited there, and I do like them. Richard at some point has figured this out throughout the day. So that's pretty clever stuff. But it just goes to Richard, then he comes home and he doesn't let on to Emily, then he knows it was her idea just to get rid of him, and that earlier in the episode she's just making an excuse. He doesn't want to fight with her, he doesn't want to make her feel bad. He doesn't let on that there was any drama with Lorelai, he just says, yeah, it was a pleasant day. And as another little gesture, he says, I'm going to make a start on that stamp collection I've always wanted to do. And she's like, right now? And he's like, well, why not? And he goes off, and yeah, he's in his room with his stuff at the end. It's nice stuff. It's nice little drama, and it just speaks to Richard's dignity. Then he does take kind of the higher road at the end there, and doesn't want to stir up any more drama. The Rory stuff was a fun little subplot as well, which gets a nice little setup when her and Lorelai are at the video store earlier in the episode, and Kirk's behind the counter. So I've got to say, how many jobs does this guy have? Because in the last episode he had a different job, like he was like the handyman, and you do see him at various jobs. Lorelai and Rory are planning a nice little movie night. They're talking about doing a Ruth Gordon marathon. They mention Hudson Hawk. They settle on watching Hudson Hawk, which is a great guilty pleasure movie, so I approve of that choice. But there's this whole thing where Rory notices that there's some risque movies that are in the sight of some young children, and she recommends to Kurt maybe put them away. She does mention put them on a higher shelf or something like that, but put them out the way of these younger children. And boy, does that come back to bite her later on. Paris, as I said, tags along with Rory to Stars Hollow because she wants to find the seedy underbelly of Stars Hollow. And Rory has one of the best lines of the episode in response to that, which is, there is no seedy underbelly. We don't even have meat-o-mates here. But I think the biggest laugh of the episode is when they go into Luke's. Rory refers to her as Angela Lansbury. Luke takes the bait. He doesn't even realise Rory's mucking around. He just calls her Angela, which is pretty funny in itself. But then Paris is just looking for things like asking him about, okay, this is the sort of place where you're going to have prostitutes or hookers, or you're running like a drug ring, and Jess comes down at one point and he just has to play along, says, yeah, we can't keep it from her, Luke. This is the place, this is where the hookers are, they're upstairs. And Paris gets her like jets all up, and yeah, it's a brilliant scene. It's so funny. Or he goes to the video store or walks past. Taylor calls her in, and it's revealed then the videos which Rory knew about earlier and the kids have actually been put behind a curtain, and the curtain has even been named after Rory. And Rory's like, no, I meant just out the way of the kids, like put them on a higher shelf. I never meant for this. And that gives Paris like the whole angle for the stories. And there's like censorship in this small town. Roy says at one point, you know I'm against censorship, and Paris like, oh well, that's even better then. Because it's someone who you wouldn't expect it, and she just finds the angle every time, and it's great stuff. And then I like the scene later on when Rory bumps into Jess, and she's seen in the video store has her face on like one of those pictures, and it's like Citizen of the Month, I should say, Rory Gilmore. And it's just funny because you could read it as like, okay, that they're playing this up to wind her up. But I think because of the way Kirk is and like how gullible he is and how naive he is, like it's probably him just taking this as, yeah, she's a great citizen, this was her idea. Nice little scene with Jess again, because he takes the heat of Rory and says, don't worry, this will soon blow over. She's like, well, what do you mean? Because she mentions at one point the only videos not put behind that curtain seem to be like Bambi and Dumbo, and Jess is like, well, I'm not going to tell you, but whoever rents Bambi and Dumbo are in for like a rude awakening. So once again, it's that thing of Jess pulling a prank to help Rory out. Jess and Dean aren't wasted in this, because I said in the last episode you didn't really need the cameo from Dean, but you actually did in this one. Like, it made sense because of the Richard stuff and how that escalated, and it was all very natural. Then he was gonna take offence and pick holes in Rory's life, and that of course includes Dean. And Jess, because of that scene, also played his part in the episode. So it's a good use of Dean and Jess in this episode as well. So yeah, pretty nice stuff, pretty solid stuff overall. I would say I definitely prefer it to the last episode. Coming up next time on Gilmore Girls, so episode 13 of season 2, it's an episode called A Tisket, A Tasket, and I can't remember the episode per se, but it's definitely a title I've heard before, and I think this tends to be one of the highest rated episodes of the show. During the annual Stars Hollow charity picnic basket auction, both Lorelai and Rory's baskets have more competition than they anticipated. Jackson and Sookie sort out a dispute. Rory and Lorelai resolve their own disagreement. So that's coming up next time on Gilmore Girls. So should hopefully be back with that review soon. By the way, if you're looking for similar type reviews, sort of retro shows or shows from around a similar time period, we also cover Buffy the Vampire Slayer on this channel. Me and Rachel have been working our way through that show, reviewing every season, and we've done 5 of the 7 seasons of Buffy, and we'll return at some point to finish it all off. And also I review the X-Files on this channel, and in the middle of season 2 of that. So if you're an X-Files fan or a Buffy fan, then you can check out those reviews. But like and subscribe, as always. Let me know what you think of this episode of Gilmore Girls in the comments. You can support me for just $1 a month on patreon.com/boardnow, or you can sign up to channel memberships if you want to support me that way, and I'll put the link in the description for that. But thanks for listening, guys, and I'll see you soon.
When I was in college, there was this horrible little diner across from my apartment building. It was run by this terrible little couple. They were very angry. They would fight, break plates, curse. And I went in there every morning for 3 years, and I had the most dreadful breakfast. It's just awful.
Luke, you remember my father?
Oh, yeah, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you. This is quite a place you've got here.
Pays bills.
Always a plus in business.
Dad, do you know what you want?
Oh, I already ate.
You did? When?
I had breakfast at home. I get up at 5:30 every morning.
Wow, why?
Well, I've gotten up at 5:30 for as long as I can remember.
Yeah, but that was when you had to work. Now you can afford to get a little crazy. Get up at 5:45.
You didn't order any grapefruit?
Yeah, I don't really like grapefruit.
Well, I always start my breakfast off with half a grapefruit.
Do the Florida people know about you? Because Anita Bryant left this huge gap that is yet to be filled.
It's important to start the day off correctly, Lorelei. A grapefruit is brain food. It has vitamin C and folic acid, and it helps with your digestion. It really is a terrific fruit.
I feel like you're about to break into song.
This morning I need half a grapefruit, preferably one that tastes like a donut.
I don't have grapefruit.
How can you not have grapefruit?
I've never had grapefruit.
I need a grapefruit. Listen, I have my father with me all day, and so far there's been no major drama or yelling or ugliness, but there will be if I don't somehow find a way to get half a grapefruit for breakfast this morning.
I could go next door to Dozie's and buy a grapefruit.
I would be eternally grateful.
I'll be right back.
Thank you.
What are you doing?
Oh, there are some holes in your collection here, and I'm just making a list to fill them.
Oh, well, these aren't all of my books.
Huh? Oh, my goodness.
And
Well, possibly I should concentrate on acquiring you a bookcase first.
that's okay. I kind of like my system.
Organized chaos?
Exactly.
Very well. We'll carry on.